Okay, I'm ready when you are. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Buddham dhammang sanghang namasami. Dear friends, this morning, the session of our 3-day retreat is merging into the regular Sunday morning program. So we have a few members here who come every Sunday, and other members who come every Sunday and also have been participating in this retreat. I'm going to speak first for a while. It may be a little bit more discursive than the usual for Sunday morning. I hope this is all right with you. And then we'll have a bit of guided meditation later during this hour. Yesterday, I attempted to get you established in right view as being foundational for the path of practice that culminates in the destruction of the taints, or the destruction of the asavas. This morning, I would like to get you established in right sila, which is the second major element. So the three elements in the Eightfold Noble Path are the wisdom, and the right view is part of that, the sila, and the samadhi, or the meditation. Here's a sutta. This is called the Akankeya Sutta. One might wish. It's given to the bhikkhus. So the Buddha says, a bhikkhu might want to be liked and respected by their colleagues in the monastic life. And if they want that, he advises, let them fulfill their precepts, be committed to inner serenity of the heart, not neglect meditation, be endowed with insight, and dwell in empty huts. A bhikkhu might wish to get robes to wear, food to eat, lodgings for safety from the weather, and medicine. If that's what they want, the Buddha advises, let them fulfill their precepts, be committed to inner serenity of the heart, not neglect meditation, be endowed with insight, and dwell in empty huts. And then this sutta goes progressively through a series of more and more refined and significant, you could say higher aspirations of in the development of this path. And the last aspiration that's given in the sutta is the bhikkhu is wishing, may I realize the undefiled freedom of the heart and freedom by wisdom in this very life, and having realized it with my own insight, and live having realized it with my own insight due to the destruction of the defilements. So this is the Chaito, the heart, samatha, peacefulness, ajatam, internal, free from the asavas, free from defilements. And then having realized the destruction of the defilements, this is the final aspiration that we've been speaking about today. What I want to suggest to you today is about the precepts. It might be difficult to remember all the precepts and remember the details of what the rules and regulations are and how each precept is defined. Maybe not so difficult with 5 precepts, but if you have 10 precepts, or if you're a novice and you have 75 precepts, or a bhikkhu or a bhikkhuni as a bhikkhuni with 311 precepts, difficult to remember all of them. But instead of remembering the precepts, one can remember the overriding general pattern in the precepts. This is the kind of behavior that leads to a quieting down those 3 asavas, that leads to the reduction and tranquilizing the asava of sensuality, the defilement of sensuality, the intoxication of sensuality, reducing the defilement of longing for rebirth in heaven, or longing for any state of existence, and the defilement of ignorance, the defilement of having any kind of delusion or misconception that's covering up your ability to see things just the way they are and causing you to see things in a distorted way. I happened to read a debate between 2 scholarly philosophers who study Buddhism. And one of them is named Damien Cohn. I'm not quite sure how to pronounce his name, spelled Keown. He wrote about Buddhist ethics. And ethics is a branch of philosophy. And Damien said that the early Buddhist texts don't really express a philosophy of ethics. They just give a pile of rules, and you can try to intuit what the general principle is. The other philosopher who I like very much is called David Kalupahana. And David has the idea that whatever leads to the arising, growth, and continuation of the asavas is unskillful. Whatever leads to their fading away, cessation, and no future arising is skillful. This answer solves 2 different problems. One is the problem about happiness. Typical non-Buddhist or Western, what they call a utilitarian approach to ethics, is the greatest happiness for the greatest number. And in order to follow that kind of principle, one would have to be able to make the distinction between that pleasure which is completely safe, which is inclining towards tranquility and inclining towards the destruction of the asavas, towards our final liberation. And we know that our path of practice is filled with that kind of innocent, safe happiness that we can enjoy and dwell in. They say that at the beginning of the practice, when one is settled in having confidence in the Buddha, the joy springs up. And from this arising of joy, piti springs up. This is the bliss of meditation. From the piti, happiness springs up. That's like more like a calm down kind of a happiness. And from this happiness, tranquility comes along. So that's an enjoyable, more close to like a neutral state. And from that tranquility, samadhi springs up. And from that samadhi, one is able to see things clearly. From that immersion in the meditation, one is able to see things clearly, how they really are. And from seeing things clearly, then one becomes disillusioned with passion. And from being disillusioned, then the passion fades away. One experiences freedom. And then from that freedom, you have the knowledge of freedom and the final liberation. So there is this kind of wholesome happiness that doesn't have the dark side. And there's another kind of, you could call happiness or pleasure, that does have a dark side, that's filled with this addictive cycle of being afraid of pain and using the pleasure to cover up the pain. And then that never really works completely, and at the end, it keeps going back and forth, and one gets on a kind of like a roller coaster of pleasure and pain. So that's the danger. So sometimes it can be confusing or unclear to a practitioner how to distinguish what's the safe enjoyment, safe happiness, and the unsafe pleasure. So that's not a very economical rule for how to behave. Let's suppose I'm feeling stressed out, and I would like to, this is not my personal addiction. I use this as an example because it's not the one that I actually have. Suppose I'm feeling stressed out and I want to watch some cat videos on the YouTube or on my telephone in order to relieve the stress. So is that wholesome or unwholesome? Okay, so if I could get myself quite confused about it if I'm just looking at happiness, because the cats make me smile, but if we look at it in terms of the three defilements, it could be maybe that it would be easier and more straightforward to be clear, and the sensual enjoyment, the sensuality. If one is a pleasure type of person, if that's a strong instinct, or if you have an instinct towards addictions, then you can sort of get to know yourself and say, when I'm indulging in an addictive pattern, it's got a certain flavor to it. So then you can learn to recognize that flavor, and you can spot it when it's on the horizon. And so then I may be able to spot it just having this thought, oh, a cat video would be nice right now. And then I can quickly and easily say, oh, there goes my sensual addiction pattern. I can recognize that and say, no, I'm not going to pick that one up. Because that would start those asavas from growing. And likewise with the anything to do with status, position, longing for safety, wanting to get out of uncertainty, wanting to just find a safe place to land, or wanting the rebirth in heaven, or wanting any other status or position that would be seem to be a final solution that I can notice. That's not going to work, and I can get to know myself so I can recognize that when it comes up. And I don't choose the path that's going to increase that, but instead I choose a different path that's going to allay that, that's going to reduce it. In the part that I quoted just above there, he mentions being committed to the inner serenity of the heart, to calming the heart. And so that serenity, that appreciation for peace, that like peace is a different kind of happiness than excitement, if we can get clarified on that, and we know that peace is better than excitement. So then there's the second one, which is the difficulty about karma. So the other schools had this belief that our unskillful, evil, unwholesome behavior puts a kind of a dust or a dirt on the self, and that has the result of a future suffering. And as long as we don't know how to do the destruction of the asavas and the liberation and getting out of the cycle of rebirth, then the problem of the karmic results of our previous bad behavior is an endless problem that we can actually never get out of. If we have the understanding of rebirth, we know that the number of times that I've killed, the number of times I've lied, the number of times I've done all different kind of misconduct is infinite, and I cannot possibly do enough penance to be able to purify all of them. And on the other hand, if you think that your karmic result or your rebirth is not based on anything you ever did in the past, but it's based on like the majority of what you've done in the past, or something like that, say, I'm usually good, and so therefore I should go to heaven. Well, in that case, that's also not truthful. Even somebody who's a professional killer, the majority of the time they're not involved in killing. They maybe only kill 10 or 15 times a year, and all the other times they're not participating in killing. So the majority doesn't make you pure. So then, what the Buddha taught is that we cannot escape the results of our deeds as long as we're going around in samsara. But when we realize the destruction of the asavas, when we realize awakening, when we come to the end of rebirth, when we've done what has to be done, when we've completed this course of practice, then we're not anymore coming to birth. It might be that there is some residual pain or dukkha that we might experience for the rest of this life, which is a karmic result of whatever caused us to take this particular birth. There's the story of the Arahant Angulimala, who did a lot of murders, and after he was fully awake, he was able to say, make this udana, this exclamation, since the time I was born, I have not done any evil deed. Meaning, since the time I reached the full awakening, I've not done an evil deed. But nevertheless, when he went out on the alms round, the people would curse him and throw rocks at him and assault him because they were so resentful about the things that he'd done before. And he just accepted that result as being the result of what had happened before. But at the end of his lifespan, there was no further consequences left because of no rebirth. So that's how the Khīnāsava is a philosophy of ethics that is resolving some of the dilemmas that could exist in some of the other types of ethics. I'm going to review with you the 10 courses of wholesome action. While you are still not reached the goal, if you follow these 10 courses of wholesome action, you could expect to be reborn in a heavenly state. Like it's compared to a loaded dice, it always falls the right side up. Or if you're doing the opposite and following the 10 courses of evil action, then while you're still here in samsara, the expectation is to be reborn in a woeful state, like a loaded dice. When we do our precepts, like taking the 5 precepts or the 10 precepts, it's speaking in terms of refraining from things. And but ethics does have both like a positive side and a negative side. I'm just trying to find what I want to tell you about. Okay. Not to kill. A person gives up killing living creatures. So this is what you should do. If you've killed before, you should reflect. This is what the Buddha recommends. I undertake the promise that from now on, I'm going to give it up. They renounce the rod and the sword. They're scrupulous, kind, full of compassion for all living beings. They give up sexual misconduct. They don't have sex, this is how it's given in the text, with a woman who has her mother, father, both mother and father, brother, sister, relative, or clan as a guardian. They don't have sex with a woman who's protected by the Dhamma. That means one who's become a nun or undertaken celibacy as a religious practice, or even one who's engaged to be married, for whom it would be a crime to undertake sex with him. This description seems kind of inadequate and doesn't speak very well to our time. So most of the good teachers say certainly not to engage in, use your sexuality in a way that is taking a vulnerable people, or people, children, people who are protected, not in a way that is going to be breaking up commitments and relationships, and also not in a way that's exploitative and harmful. Then I skipped the not stealing. So you don't steal. Don't take the wealth or the belonging of others, whether from the village or the wilderness. So this is not just a checkbook honesty that if you think you can get away with it, nobody's going to notice, or they expect a certain amount of theft, and the shopkeeper already has put it into their business plan to have a certain amount of theft, and that makes it okay. No, that's not it. You got to be really clear what things are there that are available to be taken, and what things are not available to be taken, and being scrupulous with that. Those are the 3 kinds of bodily action. Then there's 4 kinds of, it says here, successful verbal action. By giving up lying, when you are summoned to a council or an assembly, a family meeting, a guild, or a court, and asked to bear witness, and they say, please say what you know. Then, if you don't know, say, I don't know. If you know, say, I know. Not seeing, say, I don't see. Seeing, say, I see. Never deliberately lying, whether for the sake of oneself or for another, or for some trivial worldly reason. So in this case, the white lie is not provided for in this precept. It's possible to remain silent in order to avoid saying something that's cruel or harsh, but it's not given in this precept that you can tell white lies, not to mention black lies or malicious lies. Then they give up divisive speech. They don't repeat in one place what they heard in another, so as to divide people against each other. Instead, they reconcile those who are divided, supporting unity, delighting in harmony, loving harmony, speaking words that promote harmony. For those who are involved in being engaged with worldly things like politics and business, these guidelines for speech are so powerful and so potentially transformative, aren't they? The third course of wholesome speech is to give up harsh speech. They speak in a way that's mellow, pleasing to the ear, lovely, going to the heart, polite, likable, and agreeable to the people. And then, boy, what a change that would be if more people would do this. And the last one also would be a big change. Giving up nonsense. They give up talking nonsense. Their words are timely, true, meaningful, in line with the teaching and training. They say things at the right time, which are valuable, reasonable, succinct, and beneficial. We are swimming in a world which is filled with nonsense. It's like a cover-up for false speech is to pour out such a flood of nonsense that people just get tired of trying to pick out what's true or what's false in the presence of this flood of nonsense. And the divisive speech it's a strategy. The harsh speech, the cruel speech is really happening as a strategy these days. And you got to know that there's a way that even if a minority of people in any particular population would really manifest this wholesome speech, they say if it's 1%, I don't know the percentage, but that this manifesting of the wholesome can have a way of keeping back the tide of society falling into a vicious cycle. And so we should undertake these things both for our own tranquility of heart, for reducing the defilements in ourselves, and also for having a chance, creating the situation for the reducing the defilements in others. So this strategy of reducing the defilements, it's not just a selfish thing I'm only doing for myself. It's like we're in a network, and if I'm like plucking the strings of the web of interconnection between myself and others, if I am plucking the strings of beautiful harmony, truthfulness, gentleness, and what's meaningful and succinct, and putting that vibe out into the network, that it does have a power on the network, which is reducing the asavas and creating the opportunity for oneself to eventually make them be calmed down completely. Then 3 kinds of mental action. The one is giving up coveting. It's when someone is content. They don't covet the wealth and belongings of others, thinking, oh, if only those belongings were mine. And the second one is giving up ill will. They have a kind heart and loving intentions. May these sentient beings live free of enmity and ill will, untroubled and happy. And then the third is the right view, which we spoke about some yesterday. And it's explained here. This is the worldly right view, which is inclining towards a heavenly birth. That's the context of this sutta. Knowing that there is a meaning in giving and sacrificing and offering. There are fruits and results of good and bad deeds. There is an afterlife. There are such beings as mother and father, and beings that are reborn spontaneously in the heavenly realm. And there are ascetics and Brahmins who are well attained and practiced, who describe the afterlife after realizing it with their own insight. Later on, there's a different kind of right view, which is just realizing the Four Noble Truths. And both of them come into play. Both of them have their role in contributing to tranquilizing and calming down the disturbance of these defilements, these intoxicants. So, shall we have a little meditation together? Welcome to come to an upright and balanced posture. Looking within, aware of our own body within and the feelings within, aware of our state of mind. Sometimes when a baby is upset, if the parent would just touch the baby gently, then the baby is able to calm down. And the same way, we can touch our own self with mindfulness. That touch of clear seeing helps us to calm down and be centered. Just knowing how it is right now. And bringing in the thought of kindness. Towards oneself and towards all. May I be free from anger. And may all beings everywhere be free of anger. Free of hatred. Free of ill will. Free of anxiety. Let all beings emerge from those negative states. And may I realize true happiness. And all beings everywhere to realize true happiness. Letting our kind intentions fill the whole body from head to toe and the entire mind filled with nothing but kindness. And letting kindness flow out to fill the room where you're sitting, to fill the house where you are, and all the sentient beings residing in that house. May all of them be free of ill will, anxiety, negativity, all of them realizing true happiness. May everyone who can see this screen, whether in this meeting, on the YouTube, anywhere on the internet, anyone connected with this teaching, may all of them be free from hatred and ill will, free from anxiety. May all of them realize true happiness. Letting this thought of kindness flow outwards through the physical space, covering the physical world with kindness, touching every sentient being everywhere. Aware internally and externally. The thought of kindness going everywhere externally. The thought of kindness, how it feels in the body and mind when dwelling, resting in the thought of kindness. I would allow anybody to raise their hand and speak if they have words of kindness for oneself and others that you would like to share for the group. So not just a random discussion, but let's have some conversation to make it real among us as a group and to offer encouragement to each other. Okay, Sheila.
Good morning, Ayya. I would like to share a line in the salutation of the Triple Gem, salutation to the Triple Gem. Attentively, we follow the path of that blessed one with all of our mindfulness and strength. Thank you.
Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Rowanti.
Yesterday evening, I had to encounter a very difficult situation.
Please come close to the microphone so that we can hear you.
Yeah. So yesterday evening, I had to encounter a very difficult situation. But this was after your the talk on right view. So during the talk, I made a firm resolution to keep that as my working hypothesis. So during that period in the evening, I was reflecting on that while I was going through it. So the Four Noble Truths and the three characteristics of existence, anicca, dukkha, anatta. So I was keeping steadily in my mind, and that helped me to calm the mind and not reactive to the situation. And I was being very mindful, try to be as I tried my best to keep at it, and this morning looking back, I was feeling very happy that it really was such a helpful guidance to get through the situation, and my heart did not have harsh feelings toward the situation or the people, and I found the guided meditation also very healing. So I'm immensely grateful for the retreat and the intention of expressing my feeling right now is to express my gratitude towards you, but not to bring harm or hurt to anyone. And I really offer the blessings of my practice for the liberation from all suffering. Thank you so much.
Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. There's enough time for one other comment if anybody would like to share a thought of kindness. Okay, Elaine.
I would just like to thank you, dear Venerable, for your kindness in the teachings and for all my fellow participants. I've learned a lot. I have a lot to process. May all sentient beings have happiness.
Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. So this is enough for this morning. We'll take a break for 2 hours and come back afterwards for the final session of this retreat. If you want to read something during those 2 hours, we're going to be looking at the Sabhana Sutta, the sutta about all the taints, which is number 2 in the middle length discourses. So we'll see you in a couple of hours. Please be well.